seeking to, among other things, ban the importation of cars which are 8 years old and above. That's from the date of manufacture. A couple of other things, of course, in this bill. But this has raised quite a bit of dust, with car importers saying there should be a bit more time availed to them. Car buyers saying this is going to be a lot more costly, since new cars are costly. Anyway, as the bill is before Parliament, they are scrutinizing it. Let's talk about these matters. My guest, the Honorable Stephen Mukitale. He's the Bulisa County MP, but he's also a member of the Budget Committee. Good evening, Honorable.
Good evening, NTV viewers.
We also have with us Marvin Ayebale. Marvin is the Secretary General of the Associated Motor Dealers. Good evening, Marvin.
Good evening, Joel. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Honorable, just in a minute, if you could break down this for us, what exactly is this bill saying, especially in relation to these cars? Many different people are saying different things, so we want to be sure, since the Budget Committee is handling these matters, talk to us about what exactly is being said.
The act at that stage, when we intended to discourage, for environmental purposes, vehicles which have worked for more than 8 years, the intention was one, to make sure that we limit as much as possible, prohibit as much as possible the aspect of environmental pollution. But also, it is true that when we are looking at having very old vehicles also being very expensive in the end. However, the challenge now is we also need to look at the tax aspect, because the tax can also be used either to encourage some consumption or even to prohibit and discourage. And aware that taxation is a saving, is a forced saving, which is not very popular right from the biblical days. There is that aspect of taxation we need to face squarely, more so at a time when the country has commitments in the direction of trying to achieve the middle income, trying to achieve the Vision 2040 and the implementing the NDPs.
So, Honorable, just to pause you there, if I get you correctly, you are saying this is being introduced to make sure that environment is taken care of, and so that's why we are discouraging the importation of old cars. But then one would think you're also discouraging the importation of new cars, because a new car is about double. You pay double for the taxation, and so some people are thinking, wait a minute, what exactly are we doing? Because if we are making it difficult for people to import old cars, then we should make it easy for them to import new cars, shouldn't we?
I think what is important is what is the category of vehicles we should be encouraging. Some commercial vehicles, some vehicles which could be used industrial, some vehicles which are doing courier, some vehicles which are used for shipping. Those kind of vehicles should be more encouraged.
But the my cars, as they call them, should be encouraged, which are the majority?
The posh cars, the luxury cars, any good tax policy should discourage that kind of vehicles, and you go in for them when you are going for luxury, when it's, but anything which helps the pickups, the lorry trucks, the buses, the minibuses should have a more favorable tax regime, as opposed to post cars.
Let me bring Marvin here in. You're the guys that import cars. Are you ready for this?
Joel, to be quite honest, it's a policy that's going to have a lot of negative effects on the country, on the economy, on the common citizen, right down to the entire transportation sector, to all the attendant industries like construction, agricultural produce, name it. Because, for example, if you're buying, let's look at a basic functionality car. If you're to buy a Toyota Vitz today, a 2000 model Toyota Vitz, it should cost you about 15, 16, 17 million. And that's on credit, mark you, because people don't have the money to pay up front. But what is being proposed is, no, let's move to a 2011 Vitz. This, with the current tax structure as it stands, should cost you about 45 million shillings. Another functional car that we used to take our children to school, that you used to get to work and, you know, get around functional in the exact sense of the word, is a Toyota Premio. Right now you get it for about 20 million for a 2000 model. It's going to shoot up to about 65 million. So we're asking ourselves that, what's the plan for this vacuum that's being created? What can Marvin, because I personally can't afford a car at 65 million. What are we doing for the people? What are we doing for the common Ugandan who can't afford the cars that are being promoted? When we look at the environmental, it's an argument that we could spend the whole day going over. But
as we routing to protect the environment.
Let me explain to you something. If you look at a UBD/E that came out today, in very rare instances will you find that they are actually polluting the environment. What, however, you will find is that a much older car, probably a UAF, UAJ, whatever it is polluting the environment. And this comes down to one thing: the fact that we as Ugandans have a very poor car maintenance culture. We want to use the cheapest oils, we want to service when it's convenient for our pocket and not when the car needs it. Most cars, actually all cars, before coming into Uganda have to go through what is called pre-verification of conformity. This is PVOC, some of us call it JEVIC, you know, popularly known as JEVIC. And these are standards by which any car coming to Uganda must conform under the Uganda Standards 845. That is stipulated under standards law. So I can actually with fact say that cars coming into Uganda do not have an effect, such an effect on the environment. It's the cars that are within Uganda. So the question will go back to government. What can you do? How can you enforce policies that ensure that maintenance of vehicles within the system already is done so well that we don't have an effect on the environment?
Honorable, on that very question, we are telling people don't import old cars, but then again we are telling them you're going to import new cars expensively, and that means people are going to hold on to their old cars. And the old cars are the ones that are going to be deleterious to the environment, emissions, etc., etc. We're shooting ourselves in the foot, because if I cannot import an old car, which is affordable, if I cannot import a new car because of the heavy taxation, I'll keep my very old car for donkey's years. And we seem to be working in reverse, aren't we?
If you go to Cairo, Egypt, and Addis Ababa, you will find very old vehicles, and they are very good at maintaining vehicles. But what we are supposed to do to balance the equation: one, when government goes ahead to discourage a lot of small saloon cars and private cars, where the husband, the daughter, the first daughter and the first son and the wife all have 4 cars parking in the same compound, because we should also look at, are we doing the right thing?
So what's the exact reason behind this bill? Because the reason seems to be more than
Yes, you see, we should talk about the tax policy, not just the tax regime of imported vehicles. A tax policy, a good tax policy, for example, can encourage assembling. By restricting very old vehicles, you would encourage those who have graduated to buying an assembled car. But also, what we could be doing, it could be a way of discouraging this wastage of one family driving 4 cars because they are so cheap. And then, what should government be doing? Government should be aggressive, should have a robust public transport system. Because if you're going to discourage somebody living Weyogere, living Muyenga, for everyone to drive out with a car, there must be a working bus system, a good metro, and this kind of thing. So what I think we should also demand, every time government moves with a policy for a taxi drive, the citizen must also demand for the accountability. What are we going to get in return? I think that's a very valid debate if we went that way.
Honorable, just a quick one, because this bill is seeking to exempt special motor vehicles, and that's breakdown lorries, crane lorries, firefighting vehicles, and concrete mixer lorries, etc., etc. And then so you're saying it's okay, we can import, very old crane lorries and the like, but for these basic cars, we should import very new ones. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, shouldn't we be ensuring that actually the crane lorries are a lot safer? Because I want to be sure that if there's a crane that's operating on Kampala Road and people are passing, down there, they are safe. Because if it's an old lorry, chances are high it can cause havoc, right?
You see, I'm from his background. I'm a shipper, I may have been a tax agent, I've been a clearing and forwarding. And I can tell you, globally, it's almost best practice. Most of these trailers you see here are not brand new. Most of the cranes you will get, in most parts of the world, you will find that they have, you will find a crane from German, which is even 20 years is still a very good crane. It can still do a very good job. I've been in logistics myself, and we have done that. But the intention is a crane, a lorry truck, a trailer is industrial, is creating jobs, is shipping goods. But the comfort of your car, a good tax system should tax any luxury, not just cars, wines, perfumes, and all these kinds of things. So it's a good tax if it targets those who are going for luxury.
Okay, so Marvin, what's your game plan?
And favors job creation. So for me, I would want the debate to go to the tax policy. The tax policy is a wider debate than just discussing raising revenue for Doris. Now that we have challenges of paying salaries and some big commitments the country has made, I'm a member of the Infrastructure Committee. I know how much we have committed ourselves. Because even when we fail to raise money for taxes for our own budget, then we become dependent.
All right, so we need to wrap this up, Honorable. So does it not make sense when he says that? Don't his views hold water? Are you guys not concerned about, we need tax money, we need to secure the environment and the like?
Honorable raises some very good points, and from the car importers' perspective, we agree with government on limiting some years, but we don't agree with the approach. What we are proposing is that government should look at about a 15-year limit. For example, now I'm looking at a 2003 model vehicle. That should still be allowed into the country. But the other opportunity costs that we're looking at with this proposed bill, one, employment. We have around 11,000 direct employers. I'm sure your family, your friend, everybody has a car broker, a car dealer that they know that when they were trying to purchase a car. So if you're looking at 11,000 jobs at the opportunity cost of a bill, I think you're creating a very big problem. Number two, we are looking at the EA region. We can't put ourselves at Kenya's level. Yes, Kenya has the 8-year.
Why shouldn't we?
Why shouldn't we?
In East African community.
Very good question. Kenya's GDP as of 2016 was 70.53 billion. Uganda's GDP as of 2016, the latest statistics that are available, was 25.53 billion. This means they are 3 times ahead of us. That means their per capita spending income for each individual in the economy is 3 times ahead of ours. So when we try to put ourselves at that level, it's only us shooting ourselves in the foot. When we talk about government revenue, I mean, I'm wondering why government is saying, let's scrap this. Do you know, I'm sure Honorable here knows how much revenue is brought in by these cars. So a progressive approach saying, let's look at 15 years for the next 5 years, then let's move to 10 years as we aim to middle income status. We totally agree with the green transport policy, but all we're asking government is to phase the way it is done. Okay,
this engagement will continue. The bill is before Parliament. Let's wait and see how it goes. Thank you, gentlemen, for talking to us.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break now. Coming up is sports news.
Up to 250 million Uganda shillings or 5,000 times your bet every 30 minutes.
I choose UGX because I'm about to win this money.
I choose